Okay, so let us get going. Good evening, everyone, both the audience here and also those who have joined on the social media. Today we have a very interesting, and probably you will agree with me at the end of the talk, extremely thought-provoking, if I can use that word. The talk on something that we see all the time around, but probably did not pay attention to what it kind of involves and how sensitive, how important is this particular topic, namely charting biodiversity in transforming urban seascape, a multidisciplinary approach. We have two speakers. Firstly, thank you very much for coming down all the way and on this very rainy day, and I am sure it must have been quite tough to travel across. Dr. Shaunak Modi, who is Director, Coastal Conservation Foundation, Mumbai, and Dr. Pradip Patade, co-founder, Marine Life of Mumbai and Coastal Conservation Foundation, Mumbai. I mean, they're together. Just to give a few lines of intro, in 2019, Shaunak, along with Pradip, co-founded the Coastal Conservation Foundation with mainly the goal to increase awareness and understanding of coastal and marine ecosystems and the diverse range of species that inhabit them. And also initiate marine research into largely overlooked marine environs of mainland India. Now, Shaunak is right now currently undertaking research on the coastal cetaceans of Mumbai metropolitan region to understand their distribution and how anthropogenic pressures across the waters are impacting these populations. He also manages the citizen science aspects of the marine life of Mumbai and the intertidal biodiversity of India projects. It's quite interesting. I was hearing the word intertidal only recently, and it really realizes that how important is this little boundary between the land and the sea, and which only gets exposed to outside when there is a low tide, and it is rich and diverse in its marine systems. It's very interesting. I'm sure there will be many such facts that they're going to talk across. Going to Pradip, his life has kind of revolved around the flowing and ebbing of the tide, as he calls. First as a sailor, and then as a water sports instructor, and finally as a chronicler of the city's coastline. In 2017, of course, he co-founded the Marine Life of Mumbai, and in an effort to document the intertidal marine biodiversity of our shores. Today, he continues to explore the shores of Mumbai, literally every time the tide goes out. And I think in some way, this also tells us there are a set of those people who are extremely dedicated, not necessarily occupying high seats in the governmental or non-governmental sectors, but do such a valuable, such an impressive work. I think that is often quoted by everybody, or sometimes conveniently ignored by many other agencies. So we are going to bring many facets of their work, both completely from technical or scientific point of view, but also the repercussions of these, and always maintaining this, tough balance between protecting our environment and also progressing. With those few words, I understand Pradip is going to start, and then it will be seamlessly followed by Shaunak going to complete. So over to both of them. I may suggest that maybe if you have questions that can be asked at the end, I suggest that we keep them so that both of them can finish their talks, and then we take up the questions. Of course, if there are some pointed questions, you can always ask them as they are speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Satyanarayan, and thank you, TIFR, for giving us opportunity to showcase our work. So my association with sea is since long. You can see here this picture. This is Girgaon Chowpatty, very popular beach. Lots of people visit on this particular shore. And this picture is clicked in 2013 at the time of Ganesh Visarjan. This is very popular festival we celebrate in Mumbai and Maharashtra. And I was part of a lifeguard team and coordinating with BMC people. On 1.5 day Visarjan day, around 70 people got stung by this particular animal. This is a stingray, marine animal. This has a long tail and this tail has 2 barbs and barb has venom. So that day, around 70 people got stung by this stingray. And I observed the panic situation that particular time. This sting gives very unbearable pain. And I checked with lots of experts, in particular marine experts, what first aid is to be given. But I found, very much less information we have about the first aid and marine life. And finally, all these 70 people had to admit and kept under observation for one day. And that particular day, I decided we have very less information about the marine animals we have. Earlier, I used to document lots of birds and butterflies and insects. And from that day onwards, I decided let's start documenting marine life, whatever we get around our shore. So once I was scanning fisherman's net, I got to see this seahorse entangled into net. Seahorse in Mumbai, that was a thing, I can't digest that. Array, we have seahorse in Mumbai. And then I checked with fishermen. Since I am a sailor, I used to run one water sports center at Girgaon Chowpatty. I had very good connection with fishermen. So I used to take them as a volunteer or support me in my water sports activities. So I checked with him, where did you find this particular animal? He mentioned, it's very close by, Charladi pe mila. So Charladi, basically it's a place bang opposite Marine Drive, opposite Pizza by the Bay. So I went with him and I released that particular seahorse that time. While releasing, when I went on that particular place, I got amazed. There are seahorses, sea fans, then different types of corals, sponges. That full area was full of marine diversity. So normally, and again, this is a conch and eggs are laid by a similar female conch. So such animals I have encountered on our shores. And in 2015, and I started documenting all these things, posting on my Facebook page. In 2016, I prepared one poster of around 200 species in one of the wetland seminar organized by MD College in Parel. And I got lots of response. Everybody appreciated, even media people appreciated my work. And I got lots of publicity. And then we started Marine Life of Mumbai. Basically I met, after that seminar, I met Abhishek Jamalabad. Abhishek Jamalabad is basically a marine biologist and a scuba diver. I'm not a marine biologist. I'm not a science student. Abhishek Jamalabad introduced me to Siddharth Chakravarti. Siddharth Chakravarti is independent researcher. He used to work for Sea Shepherd as a captain. Do you know Sea Shepherd? Sea Shepherd, it's an NGO. They work in Atlantic and Pacific, follow shark finning and stuff. So we started Marine Life of Mumbai. And normally, what we see, on our shores, normally we see our shores are full of plastic. In this particular season, you can see lots of plastic, full of garbage and pollution. But even we sure have the other side. Our shores are rich. This picture is clicked at Juhu Chowpatty. And further down, if you go little deeper in the sea, you can see this. This place is just 1.5 kilometers away from this particular place. This is a 42 acres exposed rock, which get exposed, basically an outcrop, get exposed at the time of low tide. And this is full of corals. So basically, this is a coral reef we have in Mumbai. I visited lot many times in this particular place and documented so many animals from this place. So now, this is basically how I started marine life of Mumbai and how I started documenting marine life around Mumbai. So for further presentation, I'll call upon Mr. Shaunak. He will guide you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Pradip, and thank you for this opportunity. This is where we So this is where most of our work happens. It's called the intertidal zone. What we usually think of as the beach or a rocky shore, as you have behind here. It has a different vertical zonation. We start at the upper shore here. This is the part of the shore which is exposed to air most often, followed by the middle intertidal or the middle shore, which is submerged and out of water for approximately the same number of days per month. And then you have the lower shore, that is here, which only gets exposed for about 5 to 10 days a month when there are spring tides. So this is where most of our work and most of our documentation that we've been doing happens. And then, of course, you have subtidal. That would be where you would snorkel if we had cleaner waters, but that is the subtidal zone. So when we started working at Marine Life of Mumbai, the challenges that we faced were that the habitat was understudied. There was very little work that was done in the intertidal, even fewer papers, even fewer resources when it came to Mumbai. The areas that we had to explore were really huge. And if you take, for example, the Carter Road shore, that's almost 1.5 kilometers by 2 kilometers. And to explore that, we get about 2 hours per day for 5 days a month. So that was another challenge. Resources to identify what we were finding were very ambiguous. There was very little literature from India. A lot of it was also not very accurate. So the solution that we came up with was not to pursue it as a research project, but more as a citizen science and an outreach project combined with research. So we started doing opportunistic exploration to document all the intertidal marine biodiversity. We did not follow a fixed methodology, or we did not have transects. Rather, we would just walk on the shore and start photograph. We started photographing everything that we were finding. And thankfully, a lot of us in the group at that time were wildlife photographers and macro photographers. So we ended up taking as many photos as we could of the organism in order to try and ascertain an ID. Instead of, a couple of months after we started doing that, we realized that a lot of the things that we were finding were not even recorded from India. And to counter that, we thought of creating a database of marine life. But instead of doing so on our own website or having our own platform, we decided to create an open access database on a website called inaturalist.org. It's a global repository of biodiversity. So we created an open access data set and we started taking people on shore walks. Shore walks are basically nature trails that happen during low tide on rocky shores. And we started empowering them to go out and explore on their own and requested them to share to our database. In terms of outreach, so this is what a shore walk usually looks like. Sorry, this is at Juhu Beach, and this entire area here that's wet would remain underwater for about 15 to 20 days a month. And only when the tides are low enough does it open up. So this gives us access to the kind of marine life that we usually would not see if we went to the beach. So we started taking people, groups of about 15 to 20 people per shore walk, and started looking. It was much like a wildlife safari where we would just go and look for things and then try and find out and try and explain what we were seeing and why it was there. We followed that with online science communication. We quickly realized that there were a lot many people who wanted to go out but could not, because we had a fixed number of people we could take on each walk. So we started posting species posts on our Instagram account, which is basically just simplifying ecological information about the marine life that we find here. Like, for example, this slug that you see here, it's an Elysia slug. And the really cool thing about it is that it can photosynthesize. It's an animal that photosynthesizes. It feeds on algae and retains the chloroplasts without digesting them. And when it does not have enough food to eat, it opens up its body, increasing the surface area, and then lets those chloroplasts do photosynthesis and give it proteins. Because this slug is about 2 centimeters long. So most of the animals that we encounter are really tiny, but they have some amazing facts about them. And one thing we realized that what would get people interested in this was information like this. At the same time, there was also, we started these posts called marine glossary posts, where we would take one word and try to explain it in a simple way. When we could not do shore walks, which was mostly in the monsoons, when the sea is very rough, we started doing meetups. We organized meetups with marine biologists, ecologists, who would come and explain their work to a mixed audience of students and just interested people. This is Aditi Pofle, who's giving the talk. Her work is on octopuses in Andaman and Nicobar Islands and now in Japan. So she came and she explained about how octopuses behave and about their ecology, and it was a good indoor session. Unfortunately, then we had COVID and we had to stop those. So we moved online, where we did webinars like Careers in Marine Biology, where we invited 4 people who work in the marine space, but in very different jobs. Divya Karnad is a marine conservationist who works in in-season fish. They sort of give information about what fish to consume in which month. Ishan Khot was a program officer at Dakshin Foundation and used to work on tuna fisheries. Nupur Kale was a project associate in WCS India who worked on turtles. And Dr. Akhilesh KV is a scientist in CMFRI who used to work on sharks. So sort of giving a very different, what the different options could be, but having a career in marine space. Then we also do on-field workshops. So this is from a nature journaling workshop that we conducted at Bandstand. It's not just biology enthusiasts or scientists or researchers who we want to cater to. We also want a very different audience, and we want a very different medium, a SciComm to go out in a very different medium. What this did was it got illustrators and artists to come out, look at marine life, and then draw it in their own way, in their own style, and put it out in their accounts, whereby just increasing the awareness about the marine life. So this is the statistics that we have for the past 6 years that we've been working. We've reached more than 30,000 people online. We've done 200 plus shore walks on 20 shores. We've done 50 plus public events, which are basically talks or workshops in schools and colleges and for the general audience, and written out 200 informative posts on different species. But that was just one aspect of marine life of Mumbai. There's also data collection. As of today, we have about 9,400 observations. This is just from Mumbai, from 20 shores in Mumbai, 586 species that we've been able to identify to the species level, and 133 contributors have submitted their observations on our database. Amongst that, some of the more common ones, we have 160 species of gastropods, 54 crabs, 13 echinoderms, which are basically starfish or sea stars and their cousins, 31 species of soft corals, 8 species of hard corals, 50 species of fish, and 6 species of sea snakes. Very few of these were first recorded from Mumbai or have known to be present in Mumbai. Taking a look at some of the more nicer looking inhabitants of the intertidal zone and where you would find them on the shore. So this is a series of photographs that I do where I wanted to show the proximity of this marine life to where we live. So I started taking photographs which showed like the upper half would be human habitation or just the city. The lower half would be animals. So these are both zoantharians. These are violet zoanthids. Those are green button polyps. These are both cnidarians. They are related to corals, related to soft corals. And after the current change in the Wildlife Protection Act, they are Schedule 1 species. So they have the same protection that tigers do. These are sea sponges. Sea sponges are really primitive animals, older than dinosaurs even, and they have lived since. Even though they are animals, they have no heart, they have no blood, they have no respiratory system, nothing. And if you were to just crush one and spread it across, they would all start growing from that. So they're really, really cool looking animals, and you just get to see them on our shores. Unfortunately, the photograph that I took on the left was taken at Worli Sea Face, and this has about 25 feet of mud on it right now. It was reclaimed for the coastal road. These are false pillow corals, and at the back there is the Haji Ali Dargah. So these are the famous or infamous corals in Mumbai that were translocated for the coastal road. And this is what it looks like when you take it with a macro lens and the polyps are out underwater. And this is what it would look like if the corals were above water. And this is a Gorgonian sea fan, again a type of soft coral. This photograph was taken at Mahalakshmi. This is Pradip sir's photo. And that is what it looks like with a macro lens. So these are the actual polyps of the coral. And this is the hard skeleton that they are under, or they're inside, sorry. Pearly sea anemone, one of the largest sea anemones that we have in Mumbai. They are found on sandy shores. This was taken at Joe Beach. That's the fishing boat and then the buildings that are there. And that is what it looks like up close. These are also cnidarians. They are related to jellyfish. And yeah, they're pretty good looking animals. That was the largest sea anemone that we find, which is probably as big as the palm of your hand. This here is one of the smallest ones that we have in Mumbai. This is about 3 or 4 millimeters. And you really need to look down. They inhabit really very, very shallow pools, which have maybe like half an inch or an inch of water. So you need to sit down, be patient, and look for them. They're nocturnal, so good chance of seeing them after dark or before sunrise. That's one of our most famous and really good-looking animals. That's an octopus. Unfortunately, because even though we see this very, very often, there is no way to identify it without counting its suckers. So we've not been able to ID it. But most likely, it's called the common octopus, Octopus vulgaris. That's the scientific name. Everything that we've seen so far are animals that are found on the sandy or rocky shores. This crab here, it's called the sentinel crab, and it looks like an alien. It has blue eye stalks and blue eyes. And these are found in mangroves and muddy areas. So this photograph was taken at Juhu Beach, but there are no mangroves there. Unfortunately, there is so much siltation and there is so much anthropogenic changes that have happened on our shores. We often find species where they don't belong. Juhu Beach, for example, has a jetty that was built in the early 2000s. And that has altered the beach profile in such a way that now you find species that usually inhabit mangroves and muddy areas. It's also because the sand is now that muddy. Similarly, you also find fiddler crabs, which are inhabitants of the mangroves in Girgaon Chopati. That's a glossy marsh snake. It's not a sea snake, it's a terrestrial snake, but they inhabit mangroves. So this was taken at Gorai. Then we have what are called the lost species. These are species that were recorded from Mumbai once about 30, 40, 50 years ago, but were since lost. These are 5 sea slugs. They are shellless gastropods and some of the most flamboyant animals that you find in marine life. All of these animals have one thing in common, that they were discovered from Mumbai. In fact, the one on the right, it's called Goniodoris colabana, is named after Colaba and was found right here. So all of these species were first described by W.C. Winkworth in 1946. And since then, some of them have been found in different parts of Maharashtra, but were never found in Mumbai again. When we started looking, we first found the Goniobranchus bombayanus, which is named after Bombay, in Haji Ali in 2018. And in the next 2 years, we managed to find all 5 of them. Similarly, that's a kauri, Palmadusta lentinosa, that was also found about 30 years ago. And then Dr. Deepak Apte shared information that these are all apparently lost species, and turned out that we had found 3 of them. It's just that these species may never have been lost. It's just that no one was looking here. People were looking in cleaner areas. People were looking in more pristine areas. Mumbai was pretty much written off when it came to marine life, but it still has some great marine life. So while we were just getting comfortable and we were finding ourselves and we were documenting things, we had a bad surprise. The Mumbai Coastal Road project happened. The work for it started in 2018, and by 2019, we were witnessing large tracts of areas that we were exploring were getting landfilled. What you see here, this is the Haji Ali Dargah. This is Mahalakshmi here, and this goes all the way to PDP, Nepean Sea Road. Similarly, on this side of the Dargah, you have all of this reclamation all the way to Worli. And now we just have this much of the Worli shore left. This is the ceiling that comes in. All of this was a very, very biodiverse area. And more so because there was very little human activity happening here until we just decided to put it under 25 feet of mud. But we did learn a few things from the Coastal Road project. It validated our open access data model. There were multiple petitions against the Coastal Road for different reasons in the High Court. But something that was common between 3 of them was that they made use of the data that we had put out. And we found out about that much after the PILs were filed. We were not even told that our data was being used, and that is exactly how we wanted it to be used. We wanted it to be used by anyone and everyone. But we also realized that there was weightage given to peer-reviewed data. Because ours was collected and put in a database and that it was not peer-reviewed, it did not have the same weightage as a published research paper would. We also understood the importance of outreach in reaching more people. So there were 2 things that were happening in Mumbai simultaneously. One was there was a protest against the car shed in RA, and then there was a protest against the Coastal Road. While the car shed, the protest saw thousands of people showing support. Here we only had like a handful of, maybe at most 50 people who would show up and who would say something against the Coastal Road. And I don't really blame them. It's because nobody really knew. Nobody really thought there was anything worth saving for them to speak up. Which is why it was even more important for us to be able to reach more people and different people. And then there was a need for a long-term monitoring program. Before we started documenting and putting everything up on our database, we realized there is no baseline data in Mumbai for intertidal marine biodiversity or marine biodiversity for that matter. The only research that is carried out here is what is fished or what is commercially important. there is very little or almost no data for ecologically important species, or species for that matter. So these are some of the reports that made use of our data during the coastal road case in the High Court. And it was based on some of these reports that the High Court actually gave a stay order on the coastal road. I won't get into the politics of it. The road is ready. The reports are still there, but here we are. So until then, we functioned as a collective. We were just a group of about 8 to 10 people who were giving some time because we really liked marine life and we wanted to do something about it. But when that happened, a few of us decided, okay, we need to do more. We need to scale up our work. And we will not be able to do this in the current structure we are in, which is a collective. So Pradip ji and I, we decided that we should form Coastal Conservation Foundation. It would be a non-profit organization which would focus on research, outreach, and citizen science, amongst other things. We had to scale up our outreach activities to include more stakeholders. That was of utmost importance. We wanted to extend the geographic range to the entire Mumbai metropolitan region immediately. Because while the coastal road at that time was just from Marine Drive to Worli, there was a new road that was coming up, which would be from Bandra to Warsaw. And then a new road that was coming up, which was from Warsaw to Vasai. So our entire coastline is going to change. Whether or not our data stops that is not important. What is important to us right now is that we document what is there right now and create a baseline. Publish biodiversity checklists using existing data and start conducting ecological studies. This is something that we've started doing in the last couple of years. And start a structured long-term monitoring program. That's CCF. So once we registered and we started doing everything that we were doing, along with that, we also started looking at dolphins. Now, this was somewhere during the lockdown that news came out that nature is reclaiming and the dolphins have returned because there is no fishing happening. The dolphins were always there. It's just that the celebrity who shared it did not see them before. So, and this is something that had interested me since a long time because I wanted to know why the dolphins are here. These waters are not nice. We have a ton of sewage in them. I understand that shore animals are different. They stay in that area, which is the intertidal zone, and they can't really move, but dolphins can. So why are you all here? So we started looking at dolphin ecology, and we did the first project, which was in South Mumbai. It started in between Haji Ali Bay and Back Bay. We started looking at a dolphin population that was there, and we were looking at space use patterns and an overlap with artisanal fisheries, which was gillnet fishing. We finished that last year, and based on the results that we got, we are now looking at we are now studying coastal cetaceans in the entire MMR, that is from Virar to Back Bay. And we are also looking at their distribution. We are looking at, in ecology, we are looking at their overlap with fisheries and their interactions with fisheries. How are they interacting with them? But while we are doing research, this may sound counterintuitive, but we are doubling down on open access. We are still, a part of our data is still will continue to be open access. Because this is something that's happened in the last few years. Our observations, photographs were taken from iNaturalist, of course, with our permission, and put into a field guide, which was for the entire corals of the Indo-Pacific by Joe Rowlett. Similarly, they were used in 2 books in Marathi, one by Vishal Bhave and one by Swapna Prabhu, which were about marine life and the mangrove marine life of Maharashtra. And that is something that we wanted. Ideal would be for us to bring out our own guidebook, but until then, this is the best we could ask for. This was also something that gave us validation about our observations. So on the left is a post that we had shared in 2017, where this tiny little cuttlefish, which we find throughout Mumbai in our nearshore waters, would come to the shore in the intertidal and lay eggs which were anchored to sea fans. Now, this was an observation that we had made like at least 50 to 60 times. We had seen this happening. And that got validated when 2021, researchers from the NIO published a paper saying the same thing. So while, again, ideally, I would love for us to publish those papers, but we also want our data to facilitate research. We want to facilitate ideas. And if someone does it and not us, we are more than happy for now. Now, this is the not so nice part of the work that we do. While we're documenting everything that's alive here, we also have a stranding program where we look at marine mammals and turtles that strand. This is Indo-Pacific finless porpoise that had stranded in Juhu last year. And that's loggerhead turtle that had stranded in Juhu alive this year. So during the monsoons, we get a lot of strandings, and until now, a lot of times, if the animal was dead, it was just buried on the beach by the BMC cleaners. Nothing was ever done. We are now working with the Maharashtra Forest Department, with the Mangrove Foundation, and a few other private conservation organizations. And we've created marine respondents. It's a group where we share data with each other whenever strandings happen. And we try to urge the Forest Department to conduct necropsies to know why an animal died. It is very important to know. If the animal is alive, the Mangrove Foundation and the Forest Department have created a transit center in Airoli where it's sent in case of turtles. And we wait for a few days for it to recuperate before it is released back into the sea, giving it the best chance of survival. And the worst part of our work, and this is something that I've been personally doing for the last 7 years now, I track tar balls. So every monsoon, Mumbai has an oil spill. The oil spill doesn't happen in the monsoon. From what I've heard, the oil spill is perennial. It's just the monsoon currents and winds that brings all of that oil to the shore. This is, again, Juhu Beach. It's full of small tar balls. This happens at the start of the monsoon. And by the end of the monsoon, you have these big, almost football-sized tar balls that wash ashore. Where they're coming from, there is published research on them. Why they haven't stopped, we don't know. All I'm doing right now is trying to find out where all the oil spill happens. Earlier, we had thought it only happened on a few beaches in Mumbai, but as I've been systematically trying to find out, turns out the northernmost beach that I found was in Gujarat, just before Surat. The southernmost was Karnataka. All of it happens during the monsoons. All of it happens during the same months. It may not have the same source or may have the same source, but it's happening and it's going unnoticed. Thousands of tons of sand and tar balls get picked up from just Juhu Beach in those 2 or 3 weeks when it's happening. Why and where does it go? It goes to the landfill. We don't have SOPs in place for this. We don't have any conservation measures, nor are we even attempting to stop the source. I've complained to the MCGM, I've complained to the MPCB, the CPCB. None of them have claimed responsibility for this, or would say that this is our area of jurisdiction where we'll do something about it. There has been research that was published by NIO, which said that the oil spills that happened, the tar balls that washed ashore in Gujarat and in Goa originated from Bombay High. Whether or not these are the same, we don't know. But I would just like someone to take a look. So I'm trying to get more and more data to find out where they're coming from. This is also something, these are anomalies that we track. These don't happen every year. In fact, this happened last month where millions of these tiny, small plastic pellets started washing ashore from Palghar to Juhu, is what we know. Along with that, there were bagfuls of jackets, zippers, all sorts of textiles. And we saw that the crows were actually eating the plastic. So we filed a complaint with the MPCB. and with the MCGM and said, okay, can you get someone to do something about it? And that's when we found one bag which was full. We didn't find it. The lifeguards at Mumbai found, at Juhu Beach found it and emptied it. And one bag had those many noodles in that. And we know of at least 10 such bags that have washed ashore. I'm sure there are many which haven't. Right now, these are things that we are not primarily focusing on, but we're just trying to get the authorities' attention to them, that these are also things that are going wrong. So all of this was the work that we do in Mumbai, which is a large chunk of the work that we do. We have another project called Intertidal Biodiversity of India. This is a citizen science project, and it's a collaboration between multiple organizations and individuals with an aim to document and create a database of intertidal marine life from across India. And every red square that you see here, except for this one, sorry, every red square that you see here is one marine life observation that has been uploaded to our iNaturalist database. We started this in 2019, and as of now, we have at least one observation from every coastal state and from both the island chains in India. We decided to take the MLOM model, the Marine Life of Mumbai model, and take it to another semi-urban center, which is Goa, and started Marine Life of Goa with the same aim to increase awareness and document the marine life there. And we've just now submitted a proposal for the Mumbai Intertidal Monitoring Project, which will give us a data set of 10 years, pre and post coastal road, to see what the short-term and long-term changes to the intertidal zone and the diversity have been. So this is everything that we've been doing, some nice and some not so nice things that you looked at today. But I wanted to end my presentation with something that I have had the fortune of seeing and is in your backyard. So the next set of photographs were taken at the shore behind when I had like 3 days of surveys that I could do here. This is some of the animals that we found. These are not all of them. These are called false flower pot corals. So this is one form of it. This is the second form of it. These are flower pot corals. Werrell's cup corals. These are all stony corals and all protected under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. These can form like, these can be like this big. A colony can be this big. This was roughly the size of my palm. These are very tiny. They're like thumbnail sized. Each one would be a thumbnail. This is again the false pillow coral. A tropical ball, corallimorph. Corallimorphs are very complex animals, but the easiest way to explain them would be they're halfway between sea anemones and corals. The green, it was shining. Not so much, this is because of the camera's flash, but it was shiny. Green button polyps, they're again zoantharians. And you can see entire mats of these behind. This is Amphidoa species. This is a type of coralline algae. They're not corals. This is red algae. Common curd hydroids. Really pretty looking hydroids. They are again cnidarians, but completely different from corals. And then you have this, a flatworm that we found here. It's new to science, so it has no name. So again, and I've sent it to 2 different researchers who are working on flatworms. Both of them have no idea what it is. So we've been able to ID it down to the family, nothing beyond that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pradip. Thank you, Pradip, for very exciting presentation. And very difficult to imagine that all this, what he showed towards the end of this presentation, is maybe less than a kilometer away from our shore. And that opens up, I think, a lot of possibilities. Maybe we can talk about it further down during question answers. But okay, so I would like any of you want to ask questions or debate? Please raise your hand. Yeah, okay. Maybe one of you can also help take the camera. Sorry, take the mic out.
Very, very nice, sir. I have two questions. One is you talked about habitat transformation, where it is slowly changing into a mangrove kind of thing. How reversible or rescuable is that thing in the long run? Or are we like completely losing the natural habitat?
So a big reason for the siltation that's happening is a lot of sewage is going out into the sea. In areas like Juhu, it comes out of nalas and enters the sea at the high tide line. That is one of the major reasons for the extra siltation that's there. If that were to stop, and of course corrective measures to be taken, I don't see why in the next 20 years we can't see a reversal of that. I think it can absolutely happen. It's not that mangroves are growing there, it's just that the habitat has become, the sand has become muddy enough to sustain those species. So there's enough nutrients for them to feed on, that's why they're being found there.
And the second question is more on the terms of the proposal and the funding that you get. So like in this year's fund, that NRF fund has a large chunk dedicated to environment and ecology research. How accessible is that thing for marine life conservation kind of thing? Is it even an important thing in the terms of bureaucracy right now, or it's like completely neglected?
I didn't get it.
So like, how do you fund the kind of research that you're doing, and what kind of support do you get from the government funding agencies is something that.
So both our dolphin projects have been funded, one by the Maharashtra Forest Department. The current one is being funded under Project Dolphin of the central government. Other than that, we are largely self-funded, which basically means we've not gotten any money. It's nice way of saying that. It is not easy to get money for pure science projects. Everybody today, every grant wants you to have a conservation angle to your study. And there are times when, say, I wanted to study a sea anemone or just the sea anemone distribution. They don't really have the kind of ecological importance for me to give a conservation angle to. I could if I had to, but that is what we have to resort to. So it's not easy, but it can be done. So there are, we also rely a lot on individual donors. And we've just now become eligible for CSR funding. So that is also something that we're looking at. But other than that, it's actually quite difficult. Everybody wants you to work on more glamorous species. So if I go out for funding for a dolphin project, I will get all the money I want because they're dolphins. But nothing and very little money for the smaller invertebrates.
Yeah, I had a question. Yeah. So you spoke about the coastal road and how that has affected our ecology. And recently I saw an article about how in the Andamans, they're planning to create some shacks on the beach to like boost tourism and things like that. So I was just wondering, as citizens of India and of Bombay, what perhaps we can do to lend our voice or at least support our, or like how we can as citizens support our own wildlife and our like marine life and ecology, and also more specifically as students like in TIF, as students of biology or of science, if there's anything we can do to help preserve our ecology.
For the first question, we need more support. I mean, we need more people to know that there is something here. Unfortunately, the city has seen a large disconnect from the sea in the last 50 years. I was watching a video from the 1970s that we spoke about earlier, and it said I mean, it was more of an advert for Mumbai, and it said that people from all over the world come to Bombay's waters to swim. This was 1970s, and then I remember reading an article from 1995 by Dr. Chhabgar, who was a prominent marine biologist based in Mumbai. He said that these days sea anemones are very few. This was about Girgaon Chowpatty, and he says I could only count 90 anemones on my walk at Girgaon. And today we see 4 and we are both very happy. Then, oh, aaj 4 anemones. So, our expectations are that low because there is very little there. But the fact that it's still there means that there is hope to bounce back. But for that, there needs to be enough pressure on the government to change its way. Like MCGM, for example, has enough money to make all the sewage treatment plants needed for sewage to not go out untreated. There is an NGT order for that also. But they continue to do that. Now that needs to change. It's only when these large infrastructure problems change can we start even thinking about making a habitat better. I could always, so I am personally, and this is my personal opinion, I'm not a big fan of beach cleanups. Why? Because you're doing the trash that you pick up, one goes to the landfill. You're not eradicating it from the system. You're not controlling consumption. You're cleaning up something to make it look better. Second, the BMC already has contractors who are supposed to do that. Then why is it there? And when you do a cleanup, it gives a false narrative, it gives a false sense of security that things are nice. Like even now, a few years ago, there were apparently turtle hatchlings at Warsaw. And I was there when the hatchlings were there. I was there when they were releasing them. And there were total, I think, 92 or 93. They were not more than that. But in a few years, Guardian carried a story that thousands of turtles hatched at Warsaw Beach because of one man's cleanup efforts. That is not true. Right? So that is how the narrative changes. When someone says, okay, Warsaw is clean, it is not permanently. Even today, it's as dirty. It needs to keep clean. So the right information needs to make its way out. That's the first thing. And as biologists and as researchers, we are more than happy if anybody wants to do a project. We are more than happy to support them in any way we can. Whether it's an institutional affiliation and they want to do it independently, or they want to join the team and do it, we are more than happy for them to join the team. We're constantly looking for new people, but we're seeing a very slow change. In the last 3 or 4 years, we've had 4 or 5 students who wanted to do their master's dissertation on the intertidal. And that's the change that we want to see in more students. Like everybody knows that there are leopards in Mumbai, and it's great that you want to do your dissertation on leopards. But there's more than SGNP to Mumbai's nature. So till that thought process changes, I think that's the most crucial and the most important thing that needs to be done.
Yeah, very nice. About the, so I think one of the best ways to really do a project with the team, and that will be a great way to get started with. And I think you are welcome to. You are welcoming students to come on board. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, please.
It was more of a, shock actually to know that the Coastal Road project did not actually do anything for the conservation, because we had a talk just a few months ago about the whole Coastal Road project and how they have actually planned for, like conserving. So whatever habitat they are destroying in this process, they are actually remaking in some way or transplanting and so on. Is that not true at all?
It is true. So there were corals that were picked up from Haji Ali, and by picked up not in a bad way, but they were translocated from Haji Ali and put here in Devi Nagar. So they absolutely did that. NIO has also been given a long-term monitoring project to look at the health of the marine life post the construction of the coastal road. So there's that. But okay, if I were to give you an analogy or compare it to a more familiar situation, there's a forest and then there's a mine. Okay, but that forest has tigers. So one, you could not make a mine there or not dig there basically, or you could have a mine but try to reduce your impact as much as you can, as much as possible. Okay? But just because I say that there are tigers there, so again, comparing here, the corals are the tigers, right? There was a lot of hoo-ha about that there are corals there, so the coastal road should not come. MCGM took the simpler way out. They said, okay, we can't look at the coral. It's as good as moving the tigers out of the forest and setting the forest on fire. The forest has value too. Similarly, the intertidal was also an ecosystem that has now been eradicated in large parts of South Mumbai. North Mumbai, where we're going to have a ceiling, will also have impacts, but fewer. It will not cease to exist. So they definitely did transfer the coral. They're not lying about that. They also are trying to see what can grow on the seawall that's there on the outer edge and hope that that becomes an intertidal zone. I'm sorry, I can't say it with a straight face, but that's what they're trying to do. But there are things there also. When this case was in the High Court and when I was actively following it, there were very big talks by the MCGM that we are going to use a special eco-concrete to make those seawalls, which is imported and which is actually going to help recruitment of marine life species. Then the lockdown happened and the eco-concrete never came. This is normal concrete. Right? So we are anyway getting concession. So then where do we stop? That's the reality.
Yeah, that's right. So both happen to be an asset colloquia, so we have to be careful in quoting one from the other. Yeah, I think, yeah, there's one at the back, Samir. I just hold on, Samir.
Just wanted to know more about why it is very different.
So that is, I mean, again, it's nothing special. It's one of Mumbai's largest snails that we see. It's called the spiral melongena, or it's from the conch family. Now, what was special about that was that it had eggs on its shell, which were of the same species, but had not been laid by that animal. So snails actually are pretty funny creatures. They huddle up, they will do mass egg laying on certain boulders. So these animals actually lay eggs on rocks. But then there was this one particular individual who just was more adventurous and laid eggs on other snail that was laying eggs. So that is why Pradip actually took that photograph. It was quite funny. But it's not a special snail or anything, it's just that it has eggs of its species on its back.
Interesting.
And also
Hey, keep your mic closer, please.
okay, you also told about the authorities, the coastal road authorities they said that they will use some special concrete and they'll see if anything is growing there or the colony is getting established there. So how much time will it take?
It depends on species to species. We already see the first layer happen. I mean, you can see when we do a boat survey for the dolphin project, we already see the first layer of algae appear. So it's not that it's going to be just a barren wall. The sea will eventually put things there because it is now, even though it may not be a completely viable habitat, it's what it is. It's what is left. So the animals which are the most hardy will come and live. But to completely, for the wall to be taken over, I'm assuming it should take about 6 to 8 years at least. Again, it depends on it's not a very simple process. You're basically doing recruitment that would happen gradually over a viable flat habitat on a vertical wall. So it may take time.
Yeah.
But that is what the NIO study is all about. They're supposed to do a long-term monitoring project to see the kind of growth that is there on that wall.
So interesting to see that horizontal versus vertical also requires certain adjustment or whatever. I mean,
it's also much lesser surface area.
Yes,
so there's
much
a lot more competition between species because there's lesser space to go by.
Just hold on. I think there's one there. Yeah, please go ahead.
I just had a question. I don't know if I missed this in the beginning, but do you engage with the local communities there? Like, for example, the Koli communities that live in these areas primarily, and they are fishing communities. So with regards to like cataloging and just to get an idea of the kinds of species that are there? Do you, do outreach or like work with them kind of, or is that something you could think of?
We don't work with them. They have a lot of knowledge that we don't. We regularly talk to them.
That's where I've also spoken to a few of them, but so that's why I was wondering if, you're.
Absolutely. And they have experiential knowledge. So, to give you an example, I was once at Mansand and I was tide pooling and there was no one else there. And that day I did not see anything. And then I think a couple of days later, when I was there again, there were women there who were catching oysters, who were fishing for oysters. And then I asked one of them, कि आप परसों नहीं आए थे, वो परसों नहीं मिलता oyster, पानी नहीं उतरा. She knew, I did. I was there like a fool and I didn't see anything. So it's things like this, but again, we don't look at this in an academic way. We don't plan to write papers about their knowledge. What we would rather do is invite them to come and talk to an audience, talk about their experience. So at Juhu, there are these old men who sit on boats every evening, and I go and talk to them very often and just ask them, how was this 30 years ago? How was this 40 years ago? And once they start talking, the kind of stories that come out are just phenomenal. There are also fishing methods that Pradip has told me about, which are specialized to catch one species. So you have mud skippers in the mangroves, and there's a special fishing technique only to catch that. So it goes deep, but they are our source of information for a lot of things. We've done interview surveys with them to find out the kind of fish that dolphins prefer. So if there are certain fish in the net, the dolphins will cut that net. So that's how we're currently working with this.
Fantastic talk, sir. I was just wondering, the coastal conservation project, would you be looking at certain biological outcome measures rather than just changes in distribution of population? Can, as students of biology, we come and look at stress molecules or certain morphological changes in these organisms? Would that be of use or interest for the?
Right now, we are looking at dissolved oxygen as one, pH, temperature being the normal ones. Beyond that, if there is something that my experience in this is limited. So if there's something that you think or someone else thinks can be useful, then absolutely. We're right now working, hopefully, with IIT to look at heavy metals in dolphin blubber. So that is something that we're doing, but that is for dolphin. So when a stranding happens and the dolphin is dead and the carcass is in a good enough condition, we will take samples from them and we will give that to look at heavy metals in their fat. That gives us an idea of the heavy metals in the water. So there are established methodologies for this that have been done in Southeast Asia, and we are following the same ones. But we are looking at that. We are also looking at gut content to look for E. coli. For example, if it's a young enough individual that's died, unfortunately, we find some variation. We actually find milk in the stomach, and they're dead. So we try to ascertain what must have happened that it died. So for things like that, yes, absolutely. But not so much in the intertidal yet, but because we haven't found something that could be interesting enough to look at. Yeah.
There are many. Oh, sorry. I have visited a lot of beaches and the storehouses where they keep the fish. But I have found a lot of species that were like I suppose manta ray, like it was the size of this board, and there were many species which were not target species like mackerel, etc. So like do the fisher communities segregate them, or just like whatever they get, they just try to use them, try to create benefit out of that? And if it is so can there be measures taken just for like they only use target fishes and throw away the other fishes or other species which are not actually required? So
see, when it comes to fisheries, there are two parts to it. You have your artisanal and traditional fishing methods, which are largely nearshore methods. So gill net is one, of course, cast net is one that is really artisanal. These fishers don't have too much bycatch. These are small scale fisheries. It's what we call small scale fisheries. And then you have large scale commercial fisheries, which include trawling, purse seining, long line, that sort of thing. Can you give me an example of where you went to see these? Where do you see the manta rays, Sassoon dogs?
No, I've seen one at Palghar. I don't remember the beach.
Satpati.
Yes, Satpati.
So, see, if you go to Sassoon dog, the three biggest fish landing centers in Mumbai are Bhaucha in Mazgaon, Sassoon dogs in Kolaba, and Versova. These three are the largest ones. And some estimates put that the bycatch is what you call the fish that are not eaten. The bycatch percentage today is upwards of 50%. They are not getting enough fish. Ideally, what we would think is, okay, if you're not getting fish, either use different nets or release those fish that are not consumed.
That's what he's saying.
Right? But it is not possible to do that. See, these fishing boats work at a different scale. By the time the fish comes out, they're dead. So what has happened now is that there is an industry for the bycatch. The bycatch earlier used to be sold for like 10, 20 rupees a kg. Now it's much more because they now use fish bycatch to make chicken feed or to make fish feed. Right? So now there's an incentive to bring back that catch. And that is where the problem is. Of course, there are ways to counter that. Use large mesh nets, which will not catch the juveniles, which will let the small fish go through. But then they don't get enough catch. They use smaller mesh size, which in some cases is not even legal, but it's not enforced anyway. So it's a very complex issue, and I'm just trying to give you a brief about the situation. It has multiple layers. Every gear type has its own issues and limitations and things that they're doing right and wrong. But if you look at large-scale commercial fisheries in these three areas, they are very different from our Koli community and the small-scale and artisanal fishing that happens. So there are different ways to look at it. Manta rays, for example, the ray gills are actually used for traditional Chinese medicine, so they're exported. So if you do Sassoon dogs ever, you will see that the gills have been cut off. So they are sold separately. And it's heartbreaking to see mantas as big as this screen here, just lying on a fish landing center, but they're there. We've seen 5, 6 days on one day. So that is also happening. But there is a market for it. So you can't really blame them that why do you catch this, because it is their means of livelihood. So yes, trying to just give you an idea of a very complex issue. This would be my answer.
Okay. Yeah, I guess there are no more questions, but what I really saw at the end of the presentation is that the kind of interest that all of you had, the questions that you asked, and more importantly, the answers that you gave, it looked very special to me. Normally, this doesn't happen. There are a couple of questions, no matter how, sort of intricate this presentation is, but it really shows that the way they work, the modus operandi, the way it works. If you have realized that he said earlier that it's not that, he is particular that this is my IPR, this is my work, I'm going to publish and so on. He's actually they're putting this data, and somebody should really make this public or write or use in the open source kind of thing. The modus operandi of these two intellectuals, I must say, is very different, very proactive and very inclusive. And it really shows that they are there on the shores. They are there like activists working along with, what I think Pradip said, every tide literally goes back and is working on. So very different people. Honestly, I mean, first time I've seen such people who are working like students, like activists, but producing phenomenal amount of value. And more importantly, I liked the way you are, inviting people to come and join, and that there seemed to be, from what you said, there seemed to be enough interest among the students and who can also add to your team and do wonderful work. And also, last but not least, maybe I'll take this forward, but they also promised in some way to work, if there is a possibility of working along our shore to kind of bring out something, the real treasure that we didn't see that just below the water while sipping tea in the West Canteen. And maybe what they're promising is the kind of wealth that they're going to kind of unearth, and see the pictures will be fantastic. Maybe one day, maybe 5 years hence or 10 years hence, when you see these pictures hung to the walls in the West Canteen lounge, that these are the same. I mean, I was shocked to see the marine life, which was supposed to be near a famous statue was supposed to come up. Maharashtra probably government was planning to build a very tall statue. And the picture, that 48-acre land, space that you showed, is right there. So it's something very interesting. It's a very real eye-opener to many of us. And of course, we wish you a great success in what you have been doing. And as many of my colleagues mentioned, I hope we are able to join you and add that little value to your work, which you are, I think, largely doing selflessly. And as you said, you're working with your funds for many of the projects. Nothing less than a standing ovation should do for you. But what we want to do is the next best. You have been talking in a forum which is about 40 years old, and this forum has created this particular momentum. We would like to give you this as a gift. I hope you will like it, and thank you very much. And Pradip, this is one for you. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you. So let's join for a cup of tea, and also we can have more interactions with the speaker. Thanks once again, both of us.